Welcome everyone to the Do God podcast. I am your host, Rob Watson, and in today's episode, I'm speaking with Cathy Olmedillas, who is the founder of the Happy Mags for Kids, Anorak and Dot. As well as running the business side of things, she also creates the themes for every issue. She writes, she art directs, she commissions artists, and she does all the social media as well across for both mags across all the channels. And she also runs Studio Anorak, which is a creative studio dedicated to putting creativity at the heart of children, which is something that people who have listened to this podcast know that's something that is passionate for me and true to my heart. So firstly, Cathy, thank you for speaking with me today.
Thank you for having me, Rob. I'm really happy to be here.
Amazing. So for those who might not be aware of Anorak, could you maybe just give us a nice little overview of how it started and how it's unfolded?
Sure. So we are celebrating our 15th anniversary in September. So it's been going for 15 years, and it started off with Anorak itself, which I launched in 2006 because I had become a mum in 2002. My son was 4, and I was looking around for children's magazines that I could read with him. Just to go back a little bit more in history, I used to work in magazines myself, like The Face and Sleaze Nation, back in the 90s, which is a long, long time ago. And I've always been into magazines, and I just looked for one to read with my son, and I couldn't find anything that was, interesting, substantial, gender neutral, with no plastic toys on the cover. They tended to all belong to a kind of throwaway category. So I thought I'll just do it myself, and launched it that way. And I started off quite small with an art director. And then we just, kind of took it day by day, and it grew and grew and grew. And 15 years later, we're still here. And Anorak is the happy mag for kids. So it's basically anything. It's like an old-fashioned magazine. It's like the old-fashioned annuals that you'd get when, you were a child, or when we were children. So it has stories, it has a theme every issue, it has games and activities. And it's beautifully illustrated because I'm obsessed with illustration and nice pictures. And so that was the first that we did. And then further down the line, we launched Dot, which is the same kind of format, but aimed at the preschooler this time. And that's, again, has a theme, beautifully illustrated activities, but it's aimed for kids under the age of 5. So that's kind of, in a really quick summary, what we've been doing in the last 15 years.
It sounds amazing. Yeah, you're absolutely right about beautiful illustrations, and the style and the art direction it is it really stands out from the crowd, really. So what it's quite a stretch then, doing it for 15 years. What kind of what keeps you going and keeps you inspired and motivated to still do what you do?
I think it's 100% passion. I love making it every single quarter. I love making both. I love illustration. I love art directing. I love writing. I love using my imagination. Fundamentally, that's what it is. And my creativity. I didn't know I was creative before I started Anorak. I thought I was a very process-driven kind of person. So I had jobs like producer. I'm still a producer on the sideline. I loved my process. I used my brain a lot for kind of doing things that were very rational. And then through Anorak, I kind of discovered my creativity from a writing point of view, from an aesthetic point of view. And I think that's what keeps me going. And every issue, honestly, even though I know 15 years have passed by, every issue feels like the first issue I've ever done. So, it's just, 100% passion, 100% being in love with what I do. And it doesn't actually feel like a job ever, except when I start looking at, bookkeeping, invoicing, and all that rubbish, all that stuff, that necessary kind of business stuff. Then it feels like a business, and it feels like it's been 15 years. However, the creation of these titles it's just a pure pleasure to do, really. It's just a lot of fun. And also, I think it's a lot of freedom, which is very rare and unique. And I know I'm super privileged to be able to do that. It's just the freedom to do exactly what I want to do with it. And there's no rules. There is a bit more consistency now, but, we can tailor it, shape it to whatever we want it to be. So that freedom, passion, and creativity are really the three things that just keep me going.
Yeah, it sounds like you do indeed. It sounds, when you say that about each quarterly magazine is like starting new, it's like that beginner's mind, that that childlike kind of wonder and approach to stuff.
Yeah,
and
definitely. That's powered by child wonder is definitely what powers Anorak, and that's why people come to it too. And I think that's something that you can't engineer. It's something that happens naturally because it happens in the creation. People come to it, and that's something super magical. And as I said, like, I feel so privileged that it's happened and it keeps happening that way. But yeah, it's wonderful. And I think that's also what's missing a lot of the time. I'm kind of worried that children are forgetting to be full of wonder and awe, So I think we're pushing that even more now. We're more aware of it. When we first started it, I wasn't aware of it at all. It was just a pure instinctive thing. And now I'm just much more aware that's definitely what we are. We are merchants of wonder. That's what I call it, kind of thing. Yeah,
it's something that's so crucial now that we live in this real digital age where so much has shifted online, and it almost felt like I don't know, now it's got at the point where it's so saturated and we've become so addicted by these machines. And it's not just the kids or people at our age, it's it's the real seniors, everyone. It's this new technology, we kind of don't know how to handle it. And I think what you're doing is that opportunity to give yourself space, really, and just there's nothing like, I think I subscribe a lot to Positive News Magazine, and I love skipping through that on a Sunday morning rather than either reading the traditional papers. But with that one, it's just an opportunity you can get so lost in all these apps and stuff. So have you kind of riding that wave a bit of a backlash to online, or do you feel?
I think definitely parents, bias, and grown-ups as well, because we're not just bought by families, we're also bought by people who don't have families, who just want that kind of that want to go into this childlike adventure, really, and or appreciate the illustrations too. So I think definitely people use it as a kind of an escapism and as an alternative to screen culture. I don't really have a problem. I went through so many different stages with, the internet and what it provides. And I have, like everyone else, this love and hate relationship with it. But I don't have a problem with screen culture as such. I have a problem with what's served and what's given. And it tends to be, one thing tends to happen, and then replicas of that thing just, are made and made and made. So there's very little originality or even imagination in some of the stuff that's provided. And I think that's my main issue. And also there's an issue with volume. There's so much of it, as you say, even for us as, adults, it's difficult to wade through all that insane amount of information, of entertainment, of culture, because actually everything is done pretty much the same way, whether it's, news are all served in this kind of outrage, sensationalist stuff, or even culture everything tends to be done with a kind of, with a strategy behind it. It's everything has to get as much clicks as possible. And I think what that's a shame. And I don't know how we're going to get away from this and how that's going to be fixed. I don't think it will be fixed, because we seem to be getting worse and worse and worse. But I think what's happening more and more is that people are trying to give themselves breaks from it. And parents particularly just don't want their children in front of a screen as much as they used to. When the internet first arrived, everyone was like, whoa, this is the new babysitter or the new nanny. That's great. And there's cartoons, there's stuff we can see from archives. It's amazing. Whereas I think now new parents are very much like, they're more discerning, and they just want things that happen, more traditional things, like the things we used to have when we were kids, which was pen, paper, magazine, books, tactile things, or just plain boredom as well, which is not a bad thing to have. So yeah, we are. I think we've always kind of we've championed that more and more in the last kind of 5 years, because it has become obvious that it's needed. It's massively needed.
Is there any particular highlights for you in what you've been doing over this time, which have really stood out for you?
What, in the last 15 years?
Yeah, like any sort of stuff that you would be kind of, unexpected things that might have happened or on the way.
Oh my gosh. As I said, it's really weird because I don't really look back that much. As I said, like every issue is a new issue, every day is a new day type thing. I think this year has been phenomenal. And that has been, last year. I keep thinking we're still in 2020. It's really confusing.
Me too.
But yes, the 2020 was an amazing year for us. And I was slightly conflicted at first because, to thrive and to do so exceptionally well during a pandemic was slightly strange for me. But I realized even more what kind of service we were provided for people. And we had such an outpouring of love from people sending us, parents sending us emails. Obviously, a lot more people buying the magazines than before. I think our turnover kind of tripled, which is insane, absolutely insane. Yes, it really is. And I felt, as I said, I felt slightly conflicted about it. And I thought, okay, no, we are doing some good things, and it's good for, it's good. It's a good thing for parents and children too. But also the stuff that less kind of business stuff, which is, as I said, the emails we get from people, literally the outpouring of love. Like I have a folder which is full of praise, which was so lovely. It was almost like the stuff that I needed to hear, during a pandemic, of like, actually we're doing something that is not just a mag, it's a happy mag, yes, but it's not just a mag. It provides children with, a portal to imagination. It provides them with a time to spend with themselves and have, and explore their creativity. And I was just completely taken aback by it. So for me, possibly the launch was amazing. Of course, that first time you hold in your hand like a magazine, you're like, oh my God, that's incredible. But the last year as well. And then the rest has just been ups and downs, as with any businesses. But as I said, making editions and making the Happy Mag every quarter is just like, it's brilliant. It's a highlight in itself every single quarter.
I bet it is. We spoke briefly before we started about kind of having to persevere with these passion projects. And, in some ways you say your turnover tripled last year, but for them people who've just come through it, they didn't know you the previous 14 years. And all of a sudden to them, you're new.
Yes.
And they wouldn't be aware that you've been around for so long. And it's, I'm sure there's times when you said about ups and downs when you've probably thought, how long is this going to go for? It sounds though, and what I love about hearing from you, it sounds like it's kind of one issue at a time. Obviously you'll be forward thinking, but it's like, okay, I'm going to put my all into this each time. And there's probably been elements, I don't know, has there been elements when you thought maybe this is the last one, or when you were early on? So
it's interesting because there was definitely two phases. There was the first phase, which was, I'll just put this out. It's my side hustle. I don't need it to do extremely well. I wasn't even thinking about it in terms of finances. And then kind of 6 years down the line, I thought, okay, let's make this full time, which was a really rash move because I hadn't really planned anything to go with it. And that created some stresses, which then I had to recover from. But while this was happening, my determination to keep it going was like always high. It's always been high because it's such a pleasure to do. And I've always found a way to make it work financially and for my life and everything else. But there's definitely been some ups and downs. And I think we forget that it's all very glam. There's a shiny edition. I have an Instagram personal account. It looks like I'm surrounded by creative stuff all the time. And I live this brilliant creative life, which I do. However, there's also the blood, the sweat, and the tears, which we don't show to the world. But despite all of that, there is this thing of like, I really enjoy doing it. So if I can find a way to keep it going, I will. Because I have thought in the past, there was one particular time when I said that I tried to turn this into a full-time thing and it went catastrophically wrong. But there was one time I thought, okay, then I have to imagine a life without it. And that's when I was like, no. I've got to find a way to make it continue, because it's just so lovely to do. And it brings me a lot of joy. And of course, I have many, many plans for it. And sometimes that can also get frustrating. And I think that's the thing that I learned throughout the tough times. It's like, actually, the higher expectations, the higher you fall. And the way for me to keep this going for 15 years is just to, expect very little, but enjoy everything that happens. And even more after what we've just going through at the moment, the way I coped with lockdown, for example, was day by day. There's no need to make grand plans about going and living somewhere else or traveling or doing anything like that, because you literally can't. So I personally just decided to live day by day. And that's exactly what I did when I had this first kind of fall with Anorak, which was a very private fall, by the way, not a public one, thankfully. And, it was just, okay, just enjoy everything that you have and enjoy this particular, what you're creating, and don't expect too much of it. I think, and people often think that Anorak is very has a strategy behind it, has a plan, it has everything. It really doesn't. It's only this year that I've started thinking maybe it should have one. And, maybe we should grow the team, maybe we should do all these things. But in the last 15 years, apart from once, and that was a disaster, I just take it day by day, issue by issue, idea by idea.
Very sound advice. I love the bit about expectations. That can often be the thing that gets in way of such good ideas that we can have. We can have all these grand plans, we can do these business plans, we can map it all out.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you hit a few bumps in the road, you can be, oh, that's not how I expected it. I'm going to have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that approach and you're very much in that moment and just creating in that moment, that's kind of where the magic and the wonder and the real expression comes, rather than planning for some future version of now, which is just an idea in the head. It's not actually what's happening in front of you.
Yeah, and and that way of thinking, I think, has really crystallized, I think, with what we've going through, I think, with the pandemic, because that's forced us all to do that. And I was lucky to think about doing that before a pandemic hit, because otherwise you just drive yourself, from a personal point of view, you drive yourself completely crazy, just expecting things to be massive all the time. And I think that goes back to our discussion around the internet, and everything is becoming so inflated. To become successful now, you have to have 500,000 clicks, 500,000 readers, 500,000 this. The numbers are becoming so huge that I think there is beauty in not chasing that. And there's beauty not only because it gives you more time to craft your project. You're not dictated by those huge numbers all the time, or those huge business expectations. So you have more time to craft it. But also you don't drive yourself mad, which is a bonus, definitely. You just don't want to be the person who's constantly disappointed because your expectations are too high, or because you can't control every aspect of everything. So it's a letting go process. It's just focusing on what you absolutely love doing it, which at the end for me is the creation of. When I had this big kind of dip, I made this map, which is the map of all the things I do when I produce Anorak. And it was mind-boggling because I was just like, whoa, that filled an entire A4 page and more, from invoicing to everything, creating, thinking idea, coming up with concepts, and speaking to illustrators, doing lectures, blah blah. All of this was all in this map. And after I had this fall, I thought, okay, which bit in that map do I really want to do, and which bit will make me happy? We are called the Happy Mags for Kids. It would be a disaster if the person on the other side of the Happy Mag for Kids was just miserable and disappointed and bitter and everything else. I don't feel like I could put out as good a magazine if that was the case. So I had almost a duty to do that, not only to myself, but to this thing that I've created. And I just, decided these are the bits that I'm going to focus on that bring me happiness. They might not bring me the multi-million pounds, the millions of clicks or the millions of readers, but they bring me joy. And this is the not the soft point, the bit where I can make it work for me, but also I can make it work as still a really, really good product. So it was like what's the word? A thinking bomb. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, there was a meeting of like, this is the perfect combination of business, creation, time I want to spend on it. So it's that perfect kind of bit in the middle where sweet spot, that's the word I was looking for. That's this, yeah, that's it. So it was fundamentally that, a sweet spot of all these things that you do when you are, when you run your own business or you create something. Choose the bits that you really want to do. That's what I did. And the rest kind of course, you still do it, but it doesn't take as much importance in your head or in your day-to-day, which was really great. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered that question. But
no, you did indeed. It's excellent advice, that about getting clear. I think sometimes we're so kind of on the treadmill, even though if what we started out was doing was a real passion for us, but then naturally, like you're saying, similar situation when a company has to do accounts, invoicing, dealing with suppliers, printers, all of that element. And when I kind of started out, that wasn't exactly why I set out to do it, but it becomes a byproduct of it. But then, it's an essential sometimes, but it's almost a big believer in kind of productivity and working smarter, and
of course,
rather than working hard and stuff like that. So I kind of reevaluated what we did about 5 or 6 years ago, and kind of I just found that it was really interesting that you literally sat down with a pen and paper, whatever, and just mapped it out. And and one thing that's really come out for me is you use the word joy quite a few times, and but I love that. I absolutely love. We have it dotted about our house a few places. Joy. I find it to be such a lovely word, and it has it's such a beautiful meaning behind it. And if we can live life more with joy, balance, harmony, etc., there's some of the other words I've got. But you mentioned about, which maybe some people can always get swept up in. You can think, oh, well, if I sell so many things, and someone might come and buy us out, or this big ingy. But where's the value in that is perceived from society as being success. But for me, it's much greater to have a much more successful life is if I get joy from what I do every day.
Exactly. Yeah, you put it in much better words than I did. And that's, for me, that was how the magazine was going to survive beyond, facing financial difficulties. It's like, okay, well, I'm at this crossroad. Obviously, it's not making money. It wasn't at the time at all. How am I going to fix that? Do I give up? No way, because I love doing it. And as I say, it brings me a lot of joy. And, from the feedback we're getting from our readers, it's bringing them a huge amount of joy as well. So what can I do to make it work for me and make it work for our audience as well, without the product being completely, diluted, or without being on this treadmill, this insane treadmill where we're constantly chasing numbers. One thing that I remember actually feeling is like the first maybe 6 years was always this thing where I think the first 2 or 3 was a side hustle. As I said, it was kind of my creative outlet. It didn't really matter. But when I tried to turn it into a full-time thing, I always chased after those mainstream magazines because I don't believe Anorak should be niche. Anorak should be in every household, regardless of, where you come from, your demographic background, anything at all. For me, creativity belongs to everyone. So I was really, I was chasing after the big mainstream kids titles, and I was really like giving myself such a hard time because they were selling 30, 40,000 editions a week. And I was barely at the time doing 5,000 a quarter. And honestly, it just took the joy out of making this magazine so much that at the end I thought, okay, I have to be, first of all, stop having these massive expectations, as I said, be reasonable in terms of, okay, what can you expect to do? And how is it going to serve me? How is it going to make me happy so I can carry on doing it, I don't know, for the rest of my life? So, and as soon as I started not focusing so much on sales, sure enough, they went up. And it's been such a lesson on the things you let go of. Once you let go of them, suddenly they're just like this magical moment that happens, and things just go well. Like honestly, and it was the same at the beginning of the first lockdown. I thought, here we go, strap in. This is going to be a roller coaster. How are we going to survive throughout all this? And literally, I thought, right, I've got to focus on just making the best magazine in the world. Doesn't matter what's happening around in the rest of, the finance world, everything, and let's see. And surely enough, as I said, like the sales just shot up. So I thought, okay, great. You just let go is definitely the lesson here.
So would you say that as well, the letting go was the thing, excuse me, that turned it from a side hustle into the business in a way, something that you could rely on? Or
yes, so it did. I mean, I had to, I went from having an art director, we had an editor at first. So I had to make some tough decisions to, I basically ended up just doing it myself because I couldn't afford to keep paying an art director. I had, we had 7 or 8 illustrators per edition, if not more. So I had to find practical ways to kind of, make it lean and still of really high quality. So I ended up taking on the roles that I was really interested in, which was the art direction, the writing. I always had this thing within me, this voice within me, which said, you can write. And then this other voice going, you can't write. And I decided to listen to the can one and just start, slowly but surely kind of building up that way. And now I'm so pleased I did that, even though those decisions obviously were really hard back then. I'm so pleased I did that because honestly, if I had kept focusing on the business side, which is what I was on at the beginning of the magazine, then I don't think Anorak will be here because it's just not something that excites me, brings me joy or anything. I mean, it's nice when things go well and when business is done well, but that is not the purpose for me, but also for our readers. Like it's not meant, I don't think Anorak is ever meant to be a weekly title that sells 40,000 copies an issue. It is very much a very beautifully crafted, loved, where we pour all our souls into it. And that's why also, its frequency is only quarterly, for example. So yeah, you do go through these difficult moments and then you just realize those bits that are really painful, let them go. And then suddenly the magic happens. I mean, I sound like an old hippie now, but that's what happened. I'm not sure that happens all the time, but that's what happened for me. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Definitely in my life where you stop working so hard at something or striving towards something.
Yes.
And you just ease up and all of a sudden you get to that place
right
faster than you think you would by chasing after something.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wonder what it is. Like, I would love, I have an inquisitive mind and I would love to figure it out because if we could bottle that or sell that, I mean, we would definitely be millionaires then. But it's been the recurring kind of theme generally, and especially with Anorak, it's just like, why am I focusing so much on that thing? And it's bringing me a lot of, it feels like it's not quite right. Well, just forget about it or let it go, not forget, but let it go and just let it happen naturally and see what happens. And actually every time it's worked great. So yeah. It's good.
It reminds me a little bit of one of my favorite all-time books. I only read it a few years ago, but it's by a guy called Michael Singer, called the Surrender Experiment, and he's basically spent
Right.
the last 40 years surrendering.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and he's basically become a billionaire without ever wanting to become a billionaire.
Oh
He
my
said he never
gosh.
set out that intention. He's became this multi-billion dollar company in America,
Right.
but all through surrendering every single step of the way. He said just whatever would show up in
Yeah.
front of him, he would
Yeah.
just kind of go with it. So if there was
Wow.
he would just push through the resistance all the time and
Yes.
go,
Yes.
because often we tend to want to ignore resistance and we want some comfortable and safetyness, but it's actually when you go beyond your comfort zone, that's where the freedom is and the expression is. So
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear somebody's mates put it in a bottle. Made it into a job and a career. That's pretty amazing. But it works. It seems to work. I also think because it's about energy, isn't it? You spend so much energy onto something that's bringing you so much pain that you fight against. And actually, if you divert your energy onto something else, which brings you the joy, then that annoying thing in the corner just doesn't come into your life. But then suddenly when it transforms into something nice, because you focus so much on the positive stuff, you just see it as a magical thing that's happened, when in fact you've diverted your attention and your energy onto something that's a lot more healthy for you and for your business. Maybe.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's still quite then regarding, like, you've obviously been able to scale up quite a lot in the past few years.
Yes.
Do you find then that you haven't had to get much bigger? It's more you just have to order more magazines as such, or how does it work in terms of you actually scaling up as a business?
So we just I think, okay, so the for a long time I've also had a separate job. I'm a producer, as I said before, like I've been a producer. So I've learned through kind of being a producer and doing TV campaigns or ad campaigns, social campaigns, that they are very effective and efficient ways of working, which don't necessarily require you to work 20 hours a day or to work with a 200, 300 people team. When I worked at magazines like The Face, I remember the first time I walked into those offices, I was absolutely amazed at the amount of people it took to put a magazine together. And I've always had that thing in my head, which is like, does it really take that many people to do it? And I've become super lean. And as you said, there hasn't been any need to have huge teams, because it's run in such an efficient way. And I have some really trusted partners and suppliers and designers and illustrators who work exactly the same way as I do. And therefore it's super lean. So yeah, I haven't had to recruit 200 people to get swanky offices or anything like that, which, to be honest, I'm glad I've never done, because it would be completely pointless now. But yeah, I think I've just learned of ways to work in smartly. So I work all the time, like, in a sense, because Anorak is always in my head, but I don't sit down and work all the time. I don't expect the people who work for Anorak to do exactly the same thing, to be stuck at their computer all day long to do something. So yeah, I don't really know how I've done it, but somehow it's just smartly. I think if you always have the engine running in the background, at one point you just focus on it for like 2 or 3 hours, and then that's done. Dot takes us 2 weeks to put together, and people are always like, how is this possible? And I just say, well, it's that simple when it's simple, when it's that passion, I guess, who just runs through it. And because I work with the same people that I've always worked with, so we know exactly how we work. So all of this stuff kind of, I haven't had to get a lot more people involved, which is in a way a shame as well, because, it would be great to be able to employ more people. But actually at the moment we've been able to, sell 3 times more editions without having to do that, because there's, we just reprint and that's it. There's nothing else that we actually need to do.
I think what I was taking from that bit is about, staying lean. I think in these times, you can stay much more flexible in that as well.
Yeah.
And what I've been pulling up from you is like, obviously collaboration is key as well.
Yes.
You obviously wear quite a few different hats and have got, a good overview of everything. But, illustrators, you're going to attempt to bring the best illustrators on board, the best, the people who can produce it the best. So what would you touch on in terms of like how important collaboration is?
It's so key. It's so key. And, I work with Ben Javins, who's our designer, and he's worked with us since probably day one or maybe issue 2 or something like that. And he's now our designer. He's the one that puts together Anorak and also Dot. I work with illustrators who have been, working with us again, pretty much from issue 1 or 2. And I think also, when I try to scale it and do it into a full-time thing, I got an office space, I employed more people. And actually what happens is you turn from being a creative to being a people manager, or you become a business person. And as I said, that is not where my interest lies. My interests lie in the creative part of it. So I can do my accounts, half an hour a week. That's more than enough really to spend time on it, and the job gets done and it's fine. And just get a good accountant or a good bookkeeper that's been, with us for years and years and years, and that's it. So once you find the right people, just hold on to them, because it's so precious to have those kind of relationships with people who understand. I mean, Ben and I it's so easy now to just work together because he knows what to expect. I know what to expect from him. I think that's the case from the publishing side of the magazine. We've only talked about that, but we also have a studio, which is the design side where we do work for brands. And that's different. That requires more people to come on board, more people to help, obviously, because the projects are a fairly decent size, and that requires a different approach. But as far as the publishing side of things go, because also I've been doing this for 15 years, as I said, even though every issue is a new adventure, there are some things that I know how to do really well and really quickly without having to spend 20 hours in front of my computer.
It must feel lovely as well, doing something that not only brings joy to others, but it's actually got real meaning and purpose and can help, children and families and adults. I think anything along that, you talked about passion. Well, the passion is, that's what kind of fuels it, is seeing the outcome. And it must feel really nice to be able to do something like that. I think it's a dream for everyone to be doing something that brings them meaning and purpose. And that's probably what's kept it going for so long, and probably will go for another 15 plus years, is because of something like that.
I hope so, yeah. I mean, that's, again, when you do something, when you create something, that was never in my mind. That's something other people put onto it. You just create something almost for yourself or for your child within, or for your child, which was my case. I created it for Oscar and I, really. But and then we just have fun with it. So every edition we think of a new theme, and you just have fun. You learn so much through that theme by interviewing people, by learning, by researching stuff. So that's what I see my job, my role as. But then throughout the years, people have, it's other people who say, this means a lot to us, because it means we don't, our children have looked at the drawing they've done, or they've spent 2 hours, being creative instead of watching something, whatever, on the telly. What I find really touching is the fact, is the fact that we have parents and child come together to read the magazine, and that shared experience is so precious to me. And that's something that I hadn't even engineered or thought about. It's something that actually happened in the creative process with my son, and actually also was mirrored when people, when our readers, when our readers kind of enjoyed the magazine, they enjoyed it as a family. And some parents said to me, have emailed to us to say, sometimes I have to buy 2 issues, one so I can keep it because I don't want my kids to draw all over it. And that those kind of emails or conversations I never forget, because that's when you realize actually this is quite precious, but you I didn't set out to do something that was so purposeful or so meaningful. I don't have a massive ego like that, but it's happened somehow. It's happened, and it's very, it's very humbling when that happens. It's when people, as I said, like at the first lockdown, the kind of emails we were receiving were just so touching, and I thought, wow, what have we done here? That's quite incredible. But at the end, it's fantastic that happens, and that it means a lot more than just, a silly story or silly joke in a beautifully illustrated magazine. But that is not the reason why I do it. The reason why I do it is because I just love doing it. And if it brings joy, fantastic. If it brings meaning, wow, that's a bonus. Like that's, it's great, but I don't necessarily look for that, because I think, again, I will go back to what we were saying earlier. If I was looking for that, I probably wouldn't be able to find it. I would give myself such a hard time about finding that meaningfulness into a magazine. I mean, it's a children's magazine. It's not like a magic pill. So
it's interesting for me is that it was originally born out of the desire, because your son, you wanted something for you to have to do with your son.
Yeah.
And I think the more of us that can approach things like that in life, to think, like, for instance, and I'm thinking about when you're talking about people reading it, Anorak, with their kids, like I've recently become a father, so I'm going to look forward to reading.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Looking forward to reading that with our little girl as she grows up. That's one of the reasons I've mentioned it on this podcast a few times. Like my wife, we created our own collaborated and created our own children's book. And I think how inspiring it is for our own daughter to be able to read mummy's book at bedtime. Like that's like, wow. If we're going to say to her, she can, carve whatever kind of life that she wishes to. She's actually just like howled a bit in the background. Then the audience might be able to hear it. It's like she was just like, she was just confirming then, it's inspiring me, Daddy. But I think, that's inspiring for a child to be like, wow, what? That's what my parents can have done that. That means, of course it's, I can maybe go out and do what I'd love to do in the world and stuff like that. But without feeling like it has to turn into something, huge.
Exactly. But again, that's the magic of creativity, isn't it? It's like that you and your wife are sharing your creativity with her. And I think that's what also keeps me going. And we haven't talked about creativity, but that's an amazing thing. As I said, I wasn't creative. I didn't think I was creative before I had Anorak, or even before I had my son. And then suddenly this outpouring of creativity kind of comes together, despite the terrible nights, the sleepless nights and everything else. It's just that you suddenly become a lot more creative and efficient too. But that's that sharing of creativity that is so precious, really. And that's something that I'm hugely passionate about, more and more, I think. And that's something that we have now this mission, which is slightly more, meaningful and purposeful than we've had before, which is we consciously try to bring creativity to children. And I feel like creativity is such a source of joy and release as well for difficult times. And I worry that children are sitting down looking at something passively all day, that that can't be good. It can't be good for them mentally, but also for creativity, generally speaking, because it's a passive way of being. But anyway, I could talk about that for another 3 hours. How long have you got?
Well, maybe we could talk about creativity just for a little bit, because it is one of my things that I love to talk about and touch on. And there's a few different ways I can look at it a little bit, in terms of obviously how good it is for our own mental health and mindfulness to be able to play. And I think it's really important for me as well. It's not just about children. I think about adults recapturing that childlike wonder. I think we've gone so far off track and made things so serious in life that we forgot what it feels like to play. And I think sometimes people just think, well, that's what children would do. They would be playing hopscotch or doing somersaults on the trampoline. I'm like, no, like before we had a child, we've got a little trampoline in the back. We've got, other stuff. I'm like, it's important for me to have an outlet to really shake off energy, to not take things so seriously, like the act of play is just so important, yet we dismiss it as like, oh no, I shouldn't do that now, or it's not, as there's other things that take precedent.
Yeah, it's not seen as valuable as working, but the two of them can be combined. I'm the perfect example for that, because fundamentally what I do with Anorak is I play. You know, when I play, I use my imagination, I use my creativity, and I let my inner child speak, and we play together. My son is 19 now. Unfortunately, he's forgotten how to play. I will have to, or how to put a magazine together. But he, you know, I think you go through those stages in life where you play seems to be a thing that you only do during childhood, and then in teenagehood you play with other kind of things. But as an adult, suddenly you have all these pressures to do with work, and you know, everything becomes, as you say, super serious. And it's such a shame that we forget how to play, because there's so much joy. But I really feel like, maybe I'm being too optimistic, I don't know, but I really feel like lockdown and this pandemic have taught us again how to play and how to let go and have to have a little bit more fun, because things are pretty miserable out there. We can't always control them. And I think we, you know, of course it's been tough for a lot of parents. It's been really difficult, but I think from what parents have told us, you know, there's been many more opportunities for them to just do the jigsaw puzzles with their kids, to do some drawing with their kids, and to do all this stuff, rather than spend so much time and energy onto, you know, learning facts that may not bring, you know, that much for the rest of your life, or to your mental health, or anything like this. So I'm a massive champion of, you know, just play, get creative. I have got the jigsaw puzzles, which, by the way, I've never finished, but never mind, I've tried to finish them. You know, I have coloring books that I color in, because it just brings you into that meditative space as well, where you just stop using your brain. And fundamentally, your over-processed brains at one point need to stop. And I think before COVID, I realized how amazing it was that I could use my brain so much and actually not let it unplug. And now I've gone into a completely different headspace where I don't use this over processing as much. I use, you know, the other bit. I don't know what it's called or what it is, but it's that bit where you just play, use your imagination, use your creativity. I'm super, super lucky and super privileged to be able to do that and produce a magazine at the end of this. But there are many, many ways people can do that without having to turn it into a business or anything like that. You know, it's just so important. 5 minutes a day, just do some coloring. You might not want to sit down and do meditation because your mind is going off all over the place, and not everyone wants to be, you know, burning sage in their flats and things like this. But I think, you know, doing a bit of coloring with your kid, or just yourself, or some drawing, try to draw again. And that for me is worth 2 hours of meditative state, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I think we used it came up earlier on in the conversation around the word boredom, and we're not bored anymore. And I was reading something recently, is that is where we get an opportunity to process a lot. So in that time, in that space that we allow for boredom, that's where we can actually become very good problem solvers at things.
Yeah.
And just giving us that space to be creative rather than constantly filling up our time. Social media is, I'm on it, I use it. It sucks me in, but I can feel myself being lost in it as well. And I think and I notice sometimes it's like, if your phone's in my pocket and you have that space of boredom or whatever, but it's like, automatically it's like as if your hand's just going to go and grab your phone, and I have to just put it away. I almost have to create techniques or boundaries for myself.
Yes, that's exactly what I do. You're talking to an ex-Instagram addict. I mean, I used to scroll through Instagram like 4 hours a day. Now I'm down to 3 minutes. And the reason I've managed to do it is like you, I've had to set boundaries. I've had to put my phone in a different room. I mean, it's insane when you think about it. It's completely insane that we've become so addicted to those things, this kind of And the same with you. I've had to just, I put it in a different room. And it's kind of rewiring your brain. You have that little hit that is like, oh, I'll check what's on Instagram and anything. No, I've caught that thought. I'm not going to do that, because what is it going to give me? And that's the bit that I always try to go back to, is like, how is it going to serve me? What is it going to make me feel a lot more fulfilled and happy because I've spent 2 hours on Instagram? No. Will I remember that on my deathbed, the amount of hours that I've got on Instagram? No. I will remember, reading a book, or maybe do nothing, maybe daydreaming, or, just writing something, whatever it is, or speaking to someone. I don't think I will remember. And that's why I try to always keep that kind of perspective. It's bloody hard, though. It's so, so hard, because it's so easy to do. And I used to have my phone everywhere. Like, my phone comes with me everywhere, It's just mad. It used to be like that. And now I just leave it in a space. And if I don't hear the phone ringing, or the notifications are all off now, but if I don't hear it ringing, never mind, there will be a message and I will call it back. But it takes so much work, because we've become little robots. We hear a ting and it's like, oh, what could this be? It's actually nothing. It's nothing really. It doesn't have that much value and nutrition. So just keep writing and try to forget about it. Obviously, all I'm saying to you now is what I'm telling myself every day, right? I don't do that every day. I'm not this super guru who's managed to find the answer to stop being an addict, but I have reduced my Instagram consumption a lot. And it has felt I was, the last time I felt like this is when when I stopped drinking, which was 10 years ago. So it's that same level of addiction, I think, a similar level of addiction.
What I took from that is like you caught that thought. And that's often what it is. It's just, we get swept up in them thoughts all the time, and you can just pause across the entire day. But actually, if you can just catch and go, that's just a thought. I don't need to act on that. And actually, is that thought going to have a positive impact on my life if I'm going to do something?
Exactly.
Generally, no. Exactly. Put it to one side. But something
I don't know what it would do to kids, that's, sorry to interrupt, but I just always wonder what it would do to children, because my only experience with that, obviously, is seeing friends and my son, and, it's so embedded in their lifestyle. And, so I feel conflicted by it. Like, I see, as a teenager, my son obviously is on it quite a lot. But I feel like somehow we have to be the guardians of that, but we have to show it. We have to lead by example, and we simply don't. We had not so long ago, my son and I compared how much time we spend on Instagram, and actually I spent more than him. This was pre-addiction, pre-kicking my addiction off, so that was an interesting, a little experiment as well. And I think it's hard for all of us. But I wonder what it would do to much younger kids. And that's why it's important to have those alternatives, whether it is a coloring book and the space to be bored, as you said before, daydreaming and being bored is amazing. I've forgotten what it was like, I have to be honest. And during lockdown, I did. And sometimes I just sat on the balcony and just thinking, okay, I'm just going to see what happens. And it's amazing. And I love when my son says, I'm bored. I'm like, yes, he's bored. That's brilliant. Stay bored. It's good. It's good, because something will come out of it. And it always does. Something creative, a nice thought or an idea or whatever. So,
Yeah. Wise words. So, a couple more questions, really. I always think, like, what some of my audience might be thinking, and I know there's quite a few kind of budding entrepreneurs or people looking to get stuff off the ground. And what kind of advice would you give to people who have, attempting to either start a side hustle, which you obviously did, or in fact, we'll start with that. Actually, have the idea and start in the side hustle. What kind of inspiration or advice would you pass to them?
I mean, I'm not an expert at all, but all I can talk about is my experience. And I think I bored myself to death talking about it and telling people I was going to launch a magazine. And I think you can talk, you can plan, you can strategize, you can do all this stuff. But fundamentally, the first step is to make it and just it's the tiny little steps that matter, or that mattered for me. It was literally saying, okay, I'm doing this, and I'm stop talking about it because frankly, it's boring now. Just take a pen and paper and write down what this magazine is going to be about, what it does, and just make it happen right there and then. If you can, I would recommend that you find collaborators and people who support your idea, and also people who are frank with you, because I also think sometimes we can surround ourselves with people who are like, this is the greatest idea, because they love you so much. They're like, yes, do it. You know, that you like great supporters, but it's also nice to have people who are like, why are you doing this for? You know, I always thank our distributors right at the beginning of Anorak, the ones that turned me down, because they were like, this is never going to work. A gender neutral magazines. They were literally laughing in my face, like, a gender neutral magazine that has no recognizable characters on it, that's not part of a brand. Good luck. You know, it was literally that kind of patronizing tone. But I thank them, because I was like, oh, really? You think that's not going to work? Well, let's see. And that gave me the impetus to actually make it happen. So I know it sounds really corny, but it's just literally stop talking about it and just do it, and find the little thing you can do now to start that process. So whether it is, you know, in my case, it was literally to write out the content plan and to find an art director, and that was it. And then it's just done. I often think that I used to have this massive hang up that Anorak was a side hustle, but actually having a side hustle and having, you know, a job that keeps, you know, that pays for the bills, takes away that kind of anxiety around, you know, is this going to work? Is the business going to be able to pay my bills? So it doesn't ruin your creative experience, is what I'm trying to say, because to try to run a business at profit, pay yourself, and work off your creativity is really, really difficult. Let's not lie, it's really difficult. So I think having another job on the side is not a bad thing at all. Actually, it's probably the best thing to do to start with. Have the side hustle, start small, and then just, you know, carry on working, maybe part-time, but still carry on working.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. And it's amazing to hear that from someone who has gone through all that process and is, you know, where you are with the company now. So yeah, I often think about that with stuff. It's, you know, sometimes you like if people go all in on stuff, that's when you think, well, this has got to pay the rent or the mortgage, or it's just like, whoa. But actually, if you can keep what you're doing on the side, but you spend an hour or two a day on this, or you spend some time at the weekend, it's amazing what you can do if you add it when the time adds up. Half an hour, that half an hour a day turns into days and days by you know, at the end of the year. It's amazing what you can do in,
and you
say,
become so much more efficient as well, I think. Yeah. I think you become so much, sorry, I interrupted you, but yes, I think you become so much more efficient with it as well. So there's less time kind of procrastinating or thinking, oh, is this the right thing to do or not? Like having a full-time job forces you to be really focused and really efficient within that focus for your side hustle. And I mean, of course, if you counted up the hours, because all of that is work, right? It's not, it might be nice work, but it's still work. And of course, if you counted up all the hours in the day that you do this, it's still quite a lot of hours. But I also think a side hustle needs to be something that you absolutely love and you absolutely want to do, you know, with all the passion and everything else. And it doesn't have to be something that's difficult to do. Do you know what I mean? Like often also, that's one of the things that I did with Anorak. It was like, I became a martyr of like trying to, you know, I was reading all business books and I was watching Dragon's Den and I was like, how do these people make millions? How do they, you know, but you can become such a martyr and it can become so difficult. And actually I found that the easy things are actually the most valuable things. It doesn't have to be that complicated and tortured really to do good. So when you think of your side hustle, think of something you really, really love, I would say.
Excellent advice. And I think that seems like a great way to wrap up. I like that in that last sentence, you used the word do good as well. So it ties in with the podcast. So that was a nice draft there.
That's completely subconscious. Yeah. You've been sending me subliminal messages without realizing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's been I can only imagine so much. Like, I've got so much from it. It's a kind of pleasure really to be able to sit down and to talk to you and hear what you've done, and loads of wisdom. It reminds me of plenty of other people I spoke to, and I'm sure it'll be fire in the belly for plenty of other people.
I hope so. If there's one thing, I'm not a super fan of doing these kind of things, like, because I don't consider myself as a guru or an expert or anything like that. But if there's one thing that I hope people get from it, is this kind of contagious feeling that if you have a passion kind of itch, just do it. Just do it. And it can be fun. It doesn't have to be like this serious business mind. You can just, and I think a lot of people do that anyway. You look at Etsy, places like Etsy are filled with people just create every day and have little businesses. And I think there's so much beauty in that, much more than the big tech boys that we all want to run after. Not worth it. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, there's today's episode all wrapped up. I found that really, as always with all my chats, I find it really inspirational, an opportunity for me to, to speak with people who are, really making, making their way at stuff and really making a difference and having a lot of fun and joy. Joy was the key theme that kind of came through me for that. And if more of us can apply that to each thing that we do each day, not always going to be the case, maybe doing the dishes, you might not get much joy from it, but you probably can. I'm rambling now. But yeah, joy is a key theme. So anyway, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend. Also, if you are listening to it on YouTube, you can subscribe. If you're feeling really generous, you can join my Patreon page to help me support me as I continue to do episodes like this with inspiring people who are doing good in the world. And also remember as well that delighted that I've partnered with Positive News Magazine, who are really making a great difference in the world, especially in this time when there's a lot of negative media about. You can get a discount. You can get a 20% discount on a subscription, if you just use the word do good 20 in when you check out, you'll get that discount. So I'm really pleased that I'm partnering with them to they feel like, for me, and when I think about who do I want to be aligned with, well, I use that product myself. I have that magazine, so it would be an honor for me to be able to potentially support them and help you as well. So use that exclusive offer that I've got, do good 20 on checkout. So anyway, that'll do me for today. Until next time, have a good one.